Welcome to the Library Show. In the middle of the winter, you may be wondering, what is there to do? Well, in fact, if you are a participant in the activities of the Lower Merion Library System, you have lots of options. Not just books, not just recordings, but with the help of John Pappas, who is a relatively new reference librarian at Ludington, you can have an adult game night. You heard me, not kids game night. We'll have kids activities in the second half of the show. But for the first half, this is for you adults. John, welcome to the Library Show.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. And I love hearing about what you're doing because sometimes we're in our houses because of COVID and we're at our wits' end as to what to do. You've come up with something to do, both in the library and virtually. Why don't you tell us about it, please?
Sure. I've been doing board games for grown-ups for quite a few years at different libraries. And since I've started here at Ludington Library, we've been doing once a month board game for grown-ups group, and it's been pretty popular so far.
Okay, that's once a month for virtual and once a month in person, right?
Correct, yes.
Tell me a little bit about the difference between doing it virtually versus coming to the library and doing it.
Well, I think the coming in person is a lot more dynamic. People really like to play these games because of the interactions with other people. So when it's face-to-face, it's a lot easier and it's a lot more interactive. Trying to replicate that online is sometimes a little bit of a challenge, but we do that through a platform called Board Game Arena, where we can set up different tables and have games going and have some audio chat at the same time. So it feels a little bit more like you're interacting in real time with somebody.
Okay, let me take you back for a moment. I don't have Board Game Arena on my computer, but if I wanted to play a virtual board game with you and with your group, would I just go to Ludington's website? Would I go to some special website? How do I do that?
So you would register online at the Ludington Library website on our event calendar. And before the event starts, I send out an email with links to Board Game Arena, which is a web application, and a Discord where we can chat.
Okay, so all you have to do then eventually is just push your finger on the link and you're all set.
Just press the link and you should be there.
Okay, super duper. I always like things that are straightforward and easier because I think that appeals to more people. The more you have to work at it, the less involved people will get. So this way they can get involved and it's easy. When we first talked, I told you that my recollection of board games sort of runs all the way from Parcheesi to Monopoly and sort of simple marbles to Monopoly. And you said, in fact, there is a whole range of board games that still utilizes Parcheesi and Monopoly, the oldies but goodies. Is that popular these days?
I think there's a whole range of popular games these days. There's about 36,000 new games per year that come out. So there's more games that come out than you can ever possibly play. So there's a lot of variety at what you can look at. There's abstract games like Parcheesi, and there's economic games like Monopoly. There's also tile placement games like Azul, which is a very popular one at the library. There's like bidding games, auction games, all sorts of stuff.
Wow. So I know that for young people these days, young people meaning my granddaughter's age, high school age, they're reading a lot of science fiction / fantasy. Are there games in that arena as well? For adults? I don't know.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, any theme you can think of, you can find board games that utilize it.
Wow. And now I'm going to harken back to that real oldie but goodie. Are people playing chess online?
I don't play chess, but people definitely are. I mean, they've been playing chess online since online was possible. Online chess has always been a very popular thing.
Okay, so people can play chess online, but not through this adult board game event monthly at Ludington.
Generally, I pick one game to teach and play, and it's usually a game that's easy to teach and simple to sort of pick up. Something like chess requires a lot of learning and experience to really get going with. So I try to find games that people can just jump right into, have a brief introduction, and be able to play and have fun as quickly as possible.
Well, that makes sense to me. I happen to be a big fan of providing access points where people can get into something at various levels. And it sounds like what you're doing lets people get in. Talk about getting in. How much in advance do people have to pre-register? Is there a fee? Is there a deadline? How does the mechanics of this work?
You can usually register right up until the day of the event. There is no fee. There's no cost to the patron. For the in-person event, people can bring in their own games if they wish and teach whatever they want or learn something new. You talked about access points. We try
Right.
to utilize something called gateway games, which are games that are a little bit simpler and good for a person who has no experience outside of maybe playing Monopoly and Parcheesi when they were a kid.
Okay. And since it's the COVID era, let me ask you about social distancing. Do you do this in that large meeting room on at the back of the first floor so that people have lots of room to spread out?
Yeah, we use the whole meeting room. Everybody can spread out, and I cap it at 15 individuals. So there's more than enough room to spread out in there.
Okay. And now I'll go backwards in time for a moment. What got you interested in teaching board games? Because obviously this has been something you've been interested in for a while.
What originally got me interested in it was trying to find multi-generational programming for a library I was at in Upper Darby, where we wanted to get a range of ages and backgrounds and people into a room doing something. And board games was one that we tried and was very successful.
That's super. I've always thought, or I've thought for some time, that libraries are not just repositories of books, but are really community centers. And what you're describing is, I think, that the ultimate description of a library is a community center, getting to all generations, getting to a varied population, and really being very creative in what you're doing. Do you have, I don't know if I should ask this, but what is the oldest person who's been involved in this? Do you have people who are really
Uh,
older?
The oldest we had was 98.
Wow. Wow. That's
So any age, and I also have done programming at senior centers. So really, age isn't a barrier.
that's terrific. And especially if people come and do it in person, they don't have to worry about using a keyboard.
Yep.
I assume that the things that are done virtually, people don't have a problem with the keyboard. You do it so
Uh,
it's not an issue.
Generally, no. I mean, there's always with technology a little bit of a learning curve, but I try to keep it as small of a learning curve as possible.
Wow, that sounds terrific. The other question I had was, when people show up, do they have an opportunity to socialize aside from doing the game?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's socialization when we start. It feels a little bit like a middle school dance. Everyone's kind of milling around, talking, chit-chatting, trying to figure out what to do. I am generally a host, so I try to guide people to certain games and to a table to get started. There's interactions during the game and afterwards. I've had people after a meetup hang out outside of the library. I've had people become like fast friends through this board game night. So yeah, lots of socialization.
Well, I think you've touched on something that's very important during this time period, which is that people don't find ways easily to make new friends, but through these board games, especially if they come in person, they really can make new friends, and it gives them an opportunity to have a wider audience, more people to talk to, more things to learn from others, which is super duper. I mean, a great thing that the library does, I think, and kudos to you. Do you do other programming at Ludington?
Currently, that's the only program that I'm doing.
Okay, and the rest of the time, you're somebody that people consult for reference
So
ideas,
the
background?
rest of the time, I'm doing computer help and reference.
Do you have a lot of students from Bryn Mawr or Villanova who come in and ask, or is it mostly township residents?
We For the board game night,
No, actually, for reference is what I was thinking.
everyone asks for reference.
Okay.
All ages, all backgrounds.
So be a reference librarian to meet everybody regardless of age or background or where they come from.
Absolutely.
That's a terrific thing. Do you work closely with other reference librarians there too?
Yep, we have a small reference department.
Okay, and you're on the ground floor, isn't that correct?
Correct. Yep, we're
Ludington?
right on Lancaster.
Okay, so for those who may not know, the ground floor is where you come in from Lancaster Avenue, whereas a lot of people come in from the parking lot. That's really the second floor of the library. It's where the circulation desk is. But reference means that you either take the elevator or the stairs and go downstairs to the ground floor and make a sharp left, and that's the reference folks' spot, right? I like to
Correct.
be very concrete. I think in a concrete way, and I think people need that. Okay, so let me just summarize. They need to pre-register, correct? But they don't necessarily have to. They could show up at the in-person event without having pre-registered.
Yes.
There's no fee. And what we didn't say is when it is. So it's Tuesday night. Why don't you say when it is for
Sure.
the in-person, what it is for online?
The in-person board games is the second Tuesday of the month from 5:30 to 8:30, and the online portion is the third Sunday from 6 o'clock to 8.
Okay. Does the library close at 5?
On Sunday, yes,
Sunday.
but it's virtual, so I'm just at home setting
Doesn't matter.
everything up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So go home, have dinner, and then get online with you.
Yes,
And of course, I
absolutely.
noticed that the in-person is an hour longer because that obviously gives time for the socialization, which is terrific.
Yep.
That's super. Although I guess these days you can't bring food in, which is always, to me, the idea that sort of goes with socialization, but this is COVID. John, thank you very much. I look forward to doing this myself. I hope lots of people do, and you get more and more people who are interested and can do it more often.
I look forward to seeing you.
Thank you. Thanks for being on The Library Show.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more of The Library Show. Welcome back to The Library Show. Well, the first half of the show was dealing with a non-traditional program at the library, something that you might not expect. This half, we're going to deal with what you absolutely would expect, and where the libraries in Lower Merion have really excelled since the pandemic started, and that is in the children's programming. Things that have continued, ideas that children's librarians have had have really been extraordinary. Danielle Gowen is relatively new to us, and it was suggested to me that she come on the show and talk about how she did her riff on the game Candyland. Unfortunately, that finished last year, but it doesn't mean she might not come back with it next year. On the other hand, this month she's doing brand new programming, and I've asked Danielle to come on. Danielle, how are you today?
I'm well. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. Now, I just want to start in a chronological way. Maybe you can tell our audience what you've done in the past that brought you to being a children's librarian at Penn, Wynne.
Well, it was a very windy road to the library field. I worked for 10 years prior to being in the library. I worked in environmental science. I worked almost 8 years for the Department of Environmental Protection. And before that, I worked for an environmental consulting firm. So I have a background in biology. I have 2 degrees in biology. And that's what I did for a long time. And then I had my daughter. And I started bringing my daughter to the library for story time in Middletown, where we live. And I thought, this is wonderful. I fell in love. I'd always had a love of books, and I knew I was going to raise my daughter to be a reader like myself. But I thought, wow, just a children's librarian seems like the most fun job. There was just so much joy. And so when my daughter was about 3, I started deciding on a career change. And there was an opening at Haverford Township Free Library for an assistant in their youth services department. I applied thinking, why would they give anybody who has no experience with teaching or libraries or anything like that a chance? But they brought me in and they gave me a chance. And it was kind of love at first sight after that. I knew then that's where I wanted to be. And so I went back to school and got my master's degree in library science. And 5 years later, here I am at Penn Wynne.
Oh, that's terrific. Well, hurrah for the people at Haverford who recognized the gem in you and hired you for that job. You need to have somebody who's going to take a chance. And isn't that wonderful that there was kismet? It sort of was the meeting of you and the job in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
Does your daughter still come to the library for children's programs, or at 8 years old, is she too old for it now?
She's a little too old for it now, in that a lot of the programs like the story time is going on when she's in school. But we do still visit the library whenever they're having any family programs after hours or on the weekends, and of course to go get books. And I bring books for her all the time.
I bet. I appreciate that. I too am, as you might guess, I'm a reader. My daughter's a reader. My granddaughter's a reader. And I think that one can do a lot to hope that future generations will be interested in reading, not just reading to them, but providing books for them and bringing them to programs that will interest them. I mean, if I remember, I brought my granddaughter, they were visiting and they went to pajama story time at Penn Wynne several years ago. And boy, that was fun, seeing all the kids come with their pajamas and their stuffed animals. And they sat so quietly to hear the stories read. I was particularly struck. I don't know if it was that it was early evening and they were kind of transitioning to going to sleep. It was the whole idea of being quiet at home. They might be quiet at bedtime in their pajamas, but they listened. I think there were 3 storybooks that were read and people
Wow.
listened to every one. I don't know if you're still doing that. That may not be COVID appropriate these days.
Yeah, we're not doing in-person story time right now, but pre-COVID, I did do a pajama story time once a week. And while I couldn't wear pajamas, a lot of the kids came in their pajamas. I wore slippers at least. I wore big, chunky, fluffy slippers
Oh,
for
that's
fun.
great.
But the
That's
kids
great.
would come in their pajamas.
They could be in their pajamas while they're on Zoom, a Zoom story time too.
So I do a pre-recorded pajama story time that airs every Monday at 7 o'clock on Facebook, on our
Oh.
Facebook page.
Oh, that's terrific. So let me make sure I get that nailed down. People would go to the Penn Wynne Library website and click on Facebook and go to that, or would it be under children's programming? How would they get to that?
So they would have to go onto Facebook and go to our page on Facebook, our Penn Wynne Library page.
Okay.
And there I will be in sometimes in pajamas, sometimes not, reading a story and doing our silly lullaby at the end.
Oh, that's terrific. I bet that's very popular.
It is. I get quite a few views, and it's being pre-recorded. You can watch it anytime. So if somebody's bedtime is at 7 o'clock, if somebody's bedtime is at 8 o'clock, they can watch it before whenever they go to bed.
Or if they're sick and it's the middle of the afternoon and parents are ready to tear their hair out and the kid needs something to be entertained by, they could turn it on then.
Yes.
Okay. So that's a terrific thing. What else are you planning for this month? Is there anything going on this month, next month? What's in store here?
February has a lot going on. February is Black History Month. It's Valentine's Day. It's Lunar New Year. It's also one of my favorite holidays, which is Groundhog Day.
Listen, I love the movie. I have to love the holiday.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on in February at the library. So we'll have things to do for Black History Month. I'll have displays for that. There will be a card making, Valentine's Day card making for a couple of days. We'll have supplies set out so kids can come and make Valentines. Like I said, Groundhog Day is one of my favorites. So that's going to be a big event. That's Wednesday, February 2nd. I always get up early to find out what Phil's prediction is. And then I post that in the library. There'll be groundhog crafts. There'll be games with shadows because you need to know if Phil sees his shadow or not.
Sure.
So there'll be a lot going on for Groundhog Day. There's also Lunar New Year. So kids can come in and they can make crafts. They can make red lanterns. It's the year of the tiger. There's going to be a tiger craft. They can learn their Chinese zodiac. They can learn to say hello in Chinese and in Mandarin. There's just going to be a lot going on in February.
What is the actual date of that Lunar New Year? You said they could come in, but I don't know the date of Lunar New Year.
So it begins on February 1st, but we're actually going to start the activities probably about a week before. So it can go on for about a week. So everybody has time to come in and do the crafts and not have to just shove it into one day.
Danielle, you're describing in-person things. Are there going to be Zoom aspects of these as well, where kids could be at home and working with paper crafts and doing Valentines at home?
Yes.
At the same time that you're doing it in the library?
Yes. So there will be take and make crafts for Valentines. So they could come and pick up a kit that'll have all the same supplies that they can take home and make a Valentine. Will have the same supplies that they'll have in the library if they wanted to come in and do it.
Is this a little brown paper bag with the kid's
Yes.
name on it that's in the vestibule and all you have to do is pick it up and take it home with you?
Yeah.
Love them. Sometimes that's called grab and go, or you
Yes,
call it
grab
take
and
away.
go or take and make.
I think it's a brilliant idea. I have to say, when I first heard of that, I guess it was almost 2 years ago, I thought, what a brilliant idea to bring the library into your own home and to bring all the things that the library has and the things that you've planned out into the homes. The parents don't have to go nuts saying, I don't have a pipe cleaner, I can't make this rigid,
Right.
or I can't do this or that. Because there's always something that you don't have at home, but you make sure that everything is right there in the bag, which is
Yes.
wonderful. Okay, so we've got Groundhog Day, Lunar New Year, Valentine's Day. That's going to be Zoom as well?
No, there won't be Valentine's Day for Zoom. Valentine's Day will just be crafts. So they can either come into the library and make the crafts, or they can come get a kit to bring home to make them.
Okay, so either way, so it won't be Zoom, it'll be a home activity or an in-person activity.
Yes.
Okay. How many kids do you normally get at these things? And do you ever exceed the number that you can handle inside the library?
So because we have it set for more than just one day, and it's out for the whole time that we're open for the day, people can come and go. We never have like a whole group of people there at once. People come in their own time, and it makes it spread out that way.
Oh, that's good. That's also good in terms of the need for social distancing these days.
Right.
People are not crowding together. They're not standing over somebody else's shoulders as kids sometimes do, as adults do too. But
Right.
they're taking their own space. Okay, that's all good. Pre-registration, is that needed for the
No
Valentine's Day?
pre-registration is needed. You can just come in at any time that we're open and do the crafts.
Okay, and is the same thing true for both the Groundhog activities and the Lunar New Year activities?
Correct.
No pre-registration needed for either.
No pre-registration. I'll just have the crafts set out at different tables so that they can do them in different areas of the library to spread out, and they can come in at any time during the day.
That is super. Let me turn the clock back for a moment because we started off talking about the importance of story hour. Are you doing story hour now? Is it all virtual?
So right now it's just the one story time a week that I pre-record on Monday nights, the pajama story time. I was doing outdoor story time before it got too cold. And yes, as soon as it warms back up again, I'll be right back outside doing outdoor story time again.
Okay, well, we have to hope for a warm winter. Forget about the snow and the ice. A
Right.
warm winter so you could do story time outside. So it's that one story time. You're not doing the toddler story time by Zoom, or is that not easy to do?
It's not easy to do. It's not, I found that the kids kind of don't stay as focused on the screen.
that age.
You know, they're easily distracted, and they kind of wander away from the computer, and and it turns out to be just me there.
Okay, I hear you. You have to do things that are age appropriate, and I
Right.
understand fully. All right. Well, that's terrific. Well, welcome aboard. Penn
Thank
Wynne is
you.
lucky to have you. Lower Merion Library System is lucky to have you. And thank you for discussing all these fun things. It makes February seem not like a housebound month, but such a vibrant month.
Yeah, there's
I
been a
recommend-
lot going on.
Go to Penn Wynne Library or tune in or get on Facebook, any of these things. Danielle, thanks so much for doing all this. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Let me tell you about one other thing. Stay tuned for a moment. We'll come right back. We've talked about traditional programs at the library and untraditional ones like board games. There's another program at the library that you may have participated in the past, but it's expanding this year. And that is the provision of free passes to museums in the Philadelphia area. The first time I went to Penn Wynne Library to get a museum pass, I was stunned at the variety of museums that were involved in this. Everything from history museums to art museums to nature museums and so forth. It's a great program. It's particularly good if you go in to get your pass on a Thursday or Friday. But I have to warn you of something. It's free unless you bring your pass back late, in which case there's a hefty fine. I know because I paid it. It was $10 and I got there on a Tuesday instead of returning the pass on a Monday. So I want to be fair and I want to warn everybody out there about it. But again, if you bring it back on time, it's absolutely free. And the point of these passes is it really links major cultural institutions in our area. The libraries, which are both community centers, as I mentioned earlier, and cultural institutions, and all of the things out there that you may or may not be aware of. Did you know about gardening museums? Did you know about bird museums? Did you know, and I'm calling them museums in a very general way. Look into it. Go to your local library. Each of the Lower Merion Library System libraries have museum passes. Take advantage of it. Enjoy. And tune in next month for the Library Show. Bye-bye.